Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
He is Chris Stigall.
Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall,
host of the Chris Stigall Show.
So let's bring in talk radio host Chris Stigall.
Also, his podcast is a must-listen every day. Chris Stigall Show podcast.
And host of the Chris Stigall Show.
Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
Please welcome Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
Hey there, thanks a lot for downloading the Chris Stigall Show podcast. I know there are many, many podcasts you could choose from, so that you choose us is not a small thing. Thank you. Thanks for the 5-star reviews. Thanks, as always, for your written reviews at Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And I want to tell you about my friend in Cincinnati named John Ruhlman. Now, he runs a company called U.S. Medical Plan. And John has been a sponsor of mine and a friend of mine for a long while. And he has gotten calls from this audience, including calls from my own family, calls from colleagues and friends of mine who have shopped with him their current health insurance plan. And he has saved friends and family thousands of dollars, literally. Let me give you a for example. I have a friend who bought private health insurance for his family. His daughter had some special health needs that cost him quite a bit of money a month to get premiums covered for all of them. John found him identical coverage and saved him $2,000 a month. That's jaw-dropping money. My parents called John for a supplemental health insurance plan for their Medicare. John saved them $400 a month. Now, every nickel is precious, particularly when you're sitting on an income that you've got to count on for the rest of your days and you're counting your change. $400 is a lot of money. All right, so that's what John can do for you. Or maybe if you have no health insurance at all and you think it's too expensive, I can't afford it right now. He has over 100 different private health insurance companies all over the country that he shops and compares so that he gets you the best rates and never cheats you on coverage, by the way. It doesn't mean it's some scant coverage. Great rates, great coverage. Let John and his team at usmedicalplan.com go to work for you today. You can also call 877-410-4321. 877-410-4321, usmedicalplan.com. Glad to have you along, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in as the sun comes up in Washington, D.C. A live look at the Capitol Dome. The sun gleaming off the dome this morning if you're watching on the Salem News Channel. Thanks for listening on 570 AM in D.C. Many Beltway folks driving in this morning, undoubtedly listening to yours truly, trying to figure out exactly what it is you think, not because of what I think, but because of what you think. They're trying to figure out what you think about this situation with Iran. And overwhelmingly, the polling says, and it is, look, understandably, it's different. It's entirely different if our boys and our girls are directly involved. But overwhelmingly, and you should know this just in case you're starting to feel like you're alone or you're starting to doubt Trump, which my default position on this is trust Trump. Trust Trump's judgment. Trump knows who elected him. Trump knows why he's there. Trump knows the promises he made, and Trump knows exactly what he's delivering by way of Iran. So those of you who are starting to get the sense, and I do wonder that some of you are getting wobbly because you're hearing, and that's why I've spent some time on the show covering this the last couple of days. I'm not going to go into it in great detail again for a third day. And I can also hear a lot of you going, thank you. There is other news to talk about. So I don't intend to get into personality slap fights with colleagues of mine, particularly those with whom that I agree with 95% of the time probably. But in the last 48 hours, there has been a lot of chaos. And it occurred to me yesterday when I got home and my wife tells me, and in one sense it's humbling, but in another sense it's sort of frustrating because some of the kids that my daughter goes to school with, a lot of their parents are either familiar with the show, they know a little bit about what we do here. Some of them listen to the podcast. And what's funny, Ed, you would be shocked at the number. We learned this about our friend Noah in Massachusetts. Do you know the number of young kids that consume, maybe not the live show, but they go back and listen to this podcast? I'm learning with every passing month, more young people are listening to this show. There's a responsibility in that. Your mic's not on there, or at least I can't hear you, Ed. But there's a response. There you go. Hi. So what were you saying?
No, I said I think, yes. I've actually seen data on this. It has been improving on the low end. What, 18 to 25? Yeah.
Young, even preteens and young teenagers are listening to the show because they're curious. They're more interested than ever before. However, having said that, I'm not naive enough or arrogant enough to believe that most of them are here. Not even probably a measurable fraction of them are here. The ones that are here, though, and I'm not making this story up, the ones that are here, I heard a story yesterday from a friend, not going to name her, grateful. I think she knows who she is, and I think she knows her daughter listens to the podcast. She tells my wife, I am not making this story up to be self-aggrandizing. I'm making this story up, I'm telling you this story to make a point, okay? I think she's going into high school, so 13, 14-year-old girl. Mom knows about the show, so she listens to the show. And in fact, it turns out she's been listening to the show more than Mom. And she comes home and she tells her mother, and again, I know this because her mother calls my wife and tells her this. She says, Mom, I've had to talk some of my friends down off the ledge on this Israel-Iran thing. And her mom says, what are you talking about? She said, all my friends are terrified that we're entering into World War III because of what Trump is doing with Iran. And I know this sounds like I'm patting myself on the back. I'm not telling you this to pat myself on the back. I'm telling you this because it's important that we share what is true and that we not, in the clickbait social media era in which we live, it is important that we not foster that environment, and in fact, we gently combat it, because everyone in the game of media today is in the game of trying to get you to download something, watch something, click on something. Whether it's true or not, or sort of tangentially true or truth adjacent, is fine with them. There are a lot of people in our business that have gotten quite wealthy off of just saying stuff. And whether it's true or not, or fact-based or not, it doesn't really matter. They got the clicks, and that's all that matters. Advertisers see clicks. They go, wow, that guy got 1 million clicks. I want to put my product on a show that gets 1 million clicks. Well, yeah, but he lied about everything he just said, or completely exaggerated it. Well, I don't care. I'm still selling my widget on the show that got 1 million clicks. See how it works, Ed? It's pretty cynical and easy to understand, actually.
No, Chris, I know exactly what you mean. I have an anecdote later on that with a friend of mine. So, please continue. I appreciate your coverage.
So this 13, 14-year-old girl has to talk her friends down off the ledge because she said they've all been watching TikTok and social media and convinced that we're getting into World War III. And this young woman, and I'm so proud of her, and again, it's not about me. I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm patting the girl on the back for seeking out other information. She said, whoa, 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 she says to her friends. Where are you getting your information? And she tells her mother that most of them say social media and TikTok. And then she says, you need to start listening to the Stigall show a little more, which is fantastic. Now, I don't tell you that as a punchline. I tell you that because I sincerely, at this particular time, and there have been a couple of times in my career where I have felt this is particularly true, it is critical that we all calm down and get it right and tell the truth. And I'm just going to say, and I'm not comfortable saying this, and I'm not going to spend a whole show on it again, there are people who are telling you we're getting into World War III and that Donald Trump is being dragged into a war with Iran, and there are some of those people who also went hysterical, and Ed, you were there, went hysterical when the COVID story began. And were not of the position they are today about Fauci and the shot and the danger COVID poses. At the time, they were quite hysterical, and you don't have to take my word for it. I'm sure if we wanted to go back, and I debated it, actually. I've been so ticked, I had to kind of calm myself down yesterday. It made me mad that a 14-year-old girl is trying to calm kids down thinking we're going into World War III, because I know where it's coming from, and it's not coming from the left. The left doesn't want to talk about this, ironically. Interestingly, the left is barely talking about Iran. You know what the left is spending all their time doing? Their theatrics, Padilla and that goof in New York. And, I was detained. ICE raids. They're over there, auditioning for Oscars. They're not even talking about Iran. It's our side that's having this debate. And look, we should have a debate, but we shouldn't be dishonest about it, and we shouldn't be scaring people to death. War is a serious thing. But to downplay the threat Iran poses, to downplay who and what Iran is, and act like the United States and Israel are these big aggressors who are needlessly starting a big war and that we're going to draw other people into it, there's no evidence of any of that, as a matter of fact. And it's a lot of hysterics rooted in, quite frankly, things that are not true, because the commander-in-chief, the guy I've been focused on, the only guy in this entire storyline that really matters the most, what he said and what they're claiming he's hearing and or saying or doing is an entirely different story. And because people like this 14-year-old girl are listening to this show, she's going to their friends and saying, whoa, what makes you think we're getting into World War III? I've been listening to Stigall, and he points out the president never said anything about that. The president hasn't said anything about regime change. The president hasn't said anything about bombing Iran. The president hasn't said anything about sending our troops in. China and Russia haven't had anything to say about getting involved in this situation. But where are they getting that? Where is the terror coming? And by the way, it's not just kids; it's adults too. And I'm not picking on anybody. I understand it. People that spend a lot of time on TikTok in particular, Instagram and other places, that there are commentators in our sphere, Ed, that are scaring people to death that we're getting ready to get into World War III. And I'm not saying it can never happen. I'm not promising you tomorrow. I'm saying at this hour, for a third day, I see no evidence of that. You know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you mean. And the coverage in our space, in the social media space, on X, is very bad. And I could absolutely see how, if you're in the TikTok space, this would scare you. It's undeniable what's being pushed out there.
As for Trump, what did he actually have to say about it? Well, we'll get into, again, for a third day, because it's important, and he's the only one that really matters in the entire thing. I mean, do you know that there are people supposedly on our side, and I just read this morning, who are using their platforms and their shows now to suggest that our military men and women should ignore their commander-in-chief if he orders them to engage on any front with Iran. Do you know that? People supposedly on our side are encouraging our men and women who serve, who've enlisted in record numbers under this president, to defy this president if he asks them to so much as lift a finger in dealing with Iran. Now, what motivates that exactly? Well, I think you know. And so do I. And I don't need to say it because you're smart, but it's a really ugly, uncomfortable thing that is seeping in to the commentariat of some people on our side, and I don't like it. If it continues, I'll just be forced to name names. Who cares? This is the Stigall Show. And I interrupted you in the first segment, and I want to get back to it because, again, I think this is so fascinating. The Fed, Ed was telling me that a friend of his got a note while working at the Fed. Now, you know the Fed is an independent body. It is not under Trump's purview. And the Fed yesterday, interestingly, decided they were going to leave interest rates alone again. So, shocker, no help to Trump or the economy. But anyway, so you were telling me about a friend you know that works at the Fed.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. And they received a memo about who, they associate with, like what kind of things are being shared on your friend's social media, and just to be mindful of conspiracy theories and misinformation being peddled, specifically this time about the Minnesota shooter. So he called me to tell me about that.
Warning you because he knows you are part of a conservative talk show, and he just wanted to tell you, hey, better be careful out there. I know you're a conservative, and I know that host of yours, so I hope you're not out there peddling falsehoods and misinformation. That was basically the warning?
Yes, yeah, pretty much. Yep.
And you told him what?
I asked him kindly to watch or listen to the show, please, because regarding the Minnesota shooter...
Because he doesn't, is your point. He doesn't, right? He doesn't listen.
Correct. The people that make statements, they don't consume the actual show itself.
Yeah, and if more people did, we'd be better off. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what Trump specifically had to say, because in my opinion, that's all that really matters. I trust Trump. This was an interesting moment yesterday. Trump was asked specifically in the Oval a little later about this row with Tucker Carlson. 25-74, if you please, Paul. Here's some Trump.
Have you seen the Tucker Carlson and Senator Ted Cruz interview? It seems like this issue on whether or not the United States should strike is kind of dividing a lot of your supporters.
No, my supporters are for me. My supporters are America first. They make America great again. My supporters don't want to see Iran have a nuclear weapon. Tucker's a nice guy. He called and apologized the other day because he thought he said things that were a little bit too strong, and I appreciated that. And Ted Cruz is a nice guy. I mean, he's been with me for a long time. I'd say once the race was over, he's been with me ever since, right? But very simple. If they think that it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon, then they should oppose me. But nobody thinks it's okay. People that don't want, I don't want to fight either. I'm not looking to fight. But if it's a choice between fighting and them having a nuclear weapon, you have to do what you have to do. Maybe we won't have to fight. Don't forget, we haven't been fighting. We add a certain amount of genius to everything, but we haven't been fighting.
You have to remember, we haven't been fighting. We're geniuses, but we haven't been fighting. I love that. 25-63, a little earlier. Here's a little bit of Trump.
What do you say to the Supreme Leader of Iran says that they will not surrender?
Say good luck.
And what is the end game?
Say it?
I know deportation's run out.
It's already run out. That's why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah,
they had 60 days.
Yeah, so a little hard to hear there, but the question to the president was, what do you say to the Supreme Leader of Iran after he said they will not surrender? I say good luck. Trump's being wily. Trump's being nimble. Trump's playing with a full hand. He's got a great hand. He's holding the hot hand. He has the leverage. Iran and its supreme leader does not. And so Trump's making them guess. And if you don't understand how to speak Trump by now, I can't help you. He has not committed ground troops. He has not committed a single, he's not committed to bunker busting bombs. He's not committed to anything yet. But he is communicating to the global community, and he's communicating to the Supreme Leader of Iran. We have the goods. I can do it. By the way, you might want to skedaddle out of Tehran. Things could get ugly. Good luck, mullahs. That's all wink nod stuff, folks. That is not a commitment to World War III. This is the Stigall Show. You know what I'll bet? I'll bet there are more people in the United States right now who can tell you about this Karen Reed story than can tell you about what Trump has actually said about Iran. Agree or disagree? I think you know I'm right. More average American. I'm not talking about in this audience, of course, because you're the smartest audience out there. I'm talking about just people you come across at work or on the street who probably don't pay attention to the news quite the way you and I do. They know every particular detail of this Karen Reed, whatever it is. And I swear to you, folks, I am paid to monitor and follow the news all day, every day. And this is the truth. And Ed put it in my stack this morning for prep. I didn't read it, and I can tell you, Ed, you're the executive producer of the show, and I'm just going to admit to you and lay bare, I couldn't tell you a single fact about the Karen Reed trial. Your host would fail you miserably if you expected me to do a segment on it. I don't know who the woman is. I don't know what she was charged with. I don't know why everyone is covering it wall to wall. I have no knowledge of it whatsoever. But I promise you most people know more about that than they do what Trump has actually said about Iran right now.
You're
disagree?
Absolutely. No, I don't disagree with you at all. Nope.
You want to tell me quickly why I should care about Karen Reed, by the way?
So she... this isn't funny. No, she...
I know you're not laughing at the situation.
No. She hit her police officer husband like with a car, and he died. And she was on trial for murder of that. And there were two surprise witnesses that I heard that said that, you know, she had texted during the time, like admitting to it. But long story short, she was actually found not guilty. As far as the details in between, I'm not sure why it's the case, but there are a lot of people covering this morning.
Is it because she's an attractive white lady? I mean, can we be honest? Is that what it is? She's kind of an attractive lady?
I think that helps, yes. Yeah.
I don't know why I'm supposed to care about her. I'm sorry, I don't. Anyway, let's go to Robbie in Florida. Robbie, I'm glad you called. Welcome into the show. Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear. What's on your mind today?
Okay. Well, I listen to a certain channel on Rumble. I mean, I listen to you in the morning, and then when I get to work, I listen to a channel because I can't seem to find, you're off basically for me at 9 o'clock. And so basically from 9 o'clock on, I watch a certain channel on Rumble. And
that's good. What you're saying is you're consuming multiple outlets. That's good. I encourage it. Both left and right, by the way. I don't care. I think everybody should consume more information across the board. So you're a consumer of lots of different points of view is your point, right?
Correct. And anyway, one of the hosts that I was listening to left me feeling like, regardless of what Trump said and, what Israel said and what others have said, that we're still leading towards World War III. And that I left work not feeling very well about the situation. And until I heard you this morning, my sister actually turned me on to you. She said, you got to listen. You need to listen to Chris Stigall and in the mornings. And I said, well, what channel is he on? And she said, AM 860. And so I've been listening to you for about a week now. And I love your show. But I just, like I said, my sister turned me on, and I just thought it was great. But I really appreciate hearing what you had to say this morning, because I feel a lot better, because all the other hosts didn't say that. And so
Robbie, do you think let me ask you that. First of all, your sister has impeccable taste. I'll just say that to her. Let her know I said that, first of all. But secondly, no, sincerely, I'm glad you're here. I'm going to ask you honestly, and you don't have to flatter me or say anything you think I want to hear. You're telling me that you're hearing a lot of other people saying we're heading into World War III, and it's had you worried. You hear me say the opposite. And why do you trust what I'm saying? I'm not asking you to. You don't know me.
I feel like I can distinguish what's true and what's not, and I can do my own research. And if it's consistent with basically what I've been hearing and what I've been researching, then I can, that's what I,
May I ask you this, Robbie? Here's another question then. Do you think, given what I've just laid out, and I think you said you've done your research, do you think it true, my summary, my assessment, that what people are saying Trump is motivated by and what they're saying Trump is saying versus what Trump is actually saying and doing are different things?
Absolutely.
So you hear that?
I trust Trump because, in my opinion, I think Trump is. This is the way I say it, but I'm a fairly new Christian, so I say he's basically anointed by God to have to help to lead this country, right. And
Well, Robbie, first of all, thank you. All leaders were ordained by God. That's biblical. We believe that. Good and bad often, and we can't see why until much, much later. But there's a perfect design in all of it. Thank you so much for the call. Thanks for listening on AM 860, and welcome aboard as a new listener, by the way, Robbie. Let me go to, again, more of what Trump himself said. It's important to listen to Trump in his own words, not what other hosts tell you they think he's thinking and doing, what he's actually saying. 2575.
Look, they should have made the deal. I had a great deal for them. They should have made that deal. 60 days we talked about it, and in the end they decided not to do it, and now they wish they did it. And they want to meet, but it's it's a little late to meet, but they want to meet, and they want to come to the White House. They'll even come to the White House. So we'll see. I may do that, but it's a shame it could have been done the easy way.
Did you hear that? Now, am I the only one that thinks that's newsworthy? Because literally no one else seems to be talking about that. That's a remarkable statement. He just said that the leadership of Iran has reached out to him. Now, of course, they deny that. But they're in a bunker. They're up against it. They're pinned. They got nowhere to go and no way out. They're screwed. But they've got to, show their people. You get it. They got to go out there and beat their chest. And so they say Trump's lying. We did not. We did no such thing. I think that is a remarkable bit of news. Do you think Trump is lying, Fast Eddie, when he says that Iran's leadership called him and said, hey, we'd even come to the White House to talk this out? Do you think he's lying? Did he make that up?
No, I don't think so. No.
That's a huge bit of news. And Trump said it's not off the table to have Iran's leadership come to the White House and talk. Not off the table. That is a huge piece of news. It reminds me of when he went to talk to Little Rocket Man in North Korea. Huge piece of news. Nobody liked that, right? Everybody said, what are you doing talking to North Korea? Trump says, I'll talk to anybody. Everybody's got an angle. Everybody's been dealt a hand. Let's just see what kind of cards they've got. I'll show them mine, and we'll see. My point is, if you actually listen to the guy, and I think you get this, you will find, much like Robbie, much like a 14-year-old young lady, if you actually listen to the man who's making the decisions, you will find it's not nearly as hysterical as some of those hosts might be making things out to be. I'm not saying it's not serious. Of course, it's deadly serious. But let's be very sure about what is true, who's saying what in a position of power, that is Trump himself, and, by the way, what motivates it. What's behind what people say? Everybody has some reason. In my case, I want you to trust me. I want to earn your trust, and I want to come here and tell you if I get it wrong. I'll say, look, boy, I blew that. I got it wrong. But there's some people right now whose heads are on fire about World War III that got it completely wrong about COVID. And you and I, those of you that are newer to this show and don't know this show, you don't know me. Those who have been listening to this show for a while now know what's true about this. Again, not patting myself on the back. Just check the record because it's true. While a lot of other hosts, including some who are being hysterical now, were being hysterical then about COVID, I said, whoa, let's ask some questions. Let's listen. Let's talk out what we know and what we don't know. Whoa, everybody just stay calm. And there were people who were calling this World War III today whose heads were on fire about a cruise ship off the coast of Washington with some sick old people on it. I remember the shows I was tuned into watching them, puzzled that one individual had completely lost their mind and was virtually screaming into the camera that we were all about to die from a plague, and that the country was keeping it from us, and that Trump was keeping it from us and mismanaging it. So just, and I can back up what I'm saying if we must dig in the archives, but I'm not going to do that because I guess I've made my point. By the way, over in Egypt, this is just an interesting story, apropos of nothing. You got all these people trying to get over to. There's still the situation in Gaza. You remember Greta Thunberg and her little SS Minnow ship? She tried to get in there last week with aid, and the Israelis detained her and then sent her packing. Organizers of a march to the Egyptian border with Gaza said Tuesday 3 participants were taken by plainclothes officers in Cairo amid a wave of detentions, deportations by Egyptian security forces. Egypt's interior ministries didn't respond. My point is, the surrounding area, the neighbors of Israel, they're cracking down on this activist stuff too. They don't want any part of it. They don't want it in their country. They don't want this anti-Israel wackadoo Islamist stuff any more than Israel does. You're just not hearing as much about it. It's the Stigall Show. Let's go to Tennessee and talk to Randy. Hey, Randy, I'm glad you called. Good morning. Welcome into the show, sir. Hi.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Hey, man, I've been anti-war. I didn't believe that we should have attacked Iraq. You know, I said, yeah, Afghanistan, they've got those guys. I'm so sick of this forever war, like most MAGA people, which I consider myself one. Chris, the one exception is Iran. You know, I mean, I just turned 61 last week. Ever since I was 15 years old, we've had these crazed maniacs threatening us, held our people hostage, made Ted Koppel star, which is another thing I hold against them. But I think that we ought to help Israel in every way, pound them, give them every kind of missile, rocket, bomb that they could do to take these maniacs out with a decisive blow. And, Chris, we ain't going to start World War III because everybody hates those lunatics. All the Arabs hate them. They're Persians. They don't like them. They're dangerous. They want to attack and kill them all. Putin isn't going to do anything. There's no World War III. We ought to help our allies, Israel, in this threat to get this knife off of everybody's throat and end it. And on that,
a point was made, Randy, and your point is taken, and I appreciate it. A point was made by Levin on X, and I thought it was a good one. It's just true. You know who else is watching this right now? China. And they're watching to see how serious a guy like Donald Trump is. And remember, Donald Trump is being wily and curious to people on purpose. He doesn't want anybody to know just exactly what he's thinking, but he's letting everybody know that everything's on the table. It could be a full-scale war where we send in troops. It could be a bunker-busting bomb. It could be Iran's leadership coming to the White House and chatting. Who knows? And Trump is basically saying, go ahead, make my day. He's trying to terrify these people and see if they won't. I mean, I would say call the bluff, but that's not accurate because Trump's not bluffing. He's just keeping all of his options open. He's holding all the cards. Levin said it this way: if we were weak or equivocating, China would take that as a signal to be more aggressive and seek global domination, which they do. If we're resolute and strong, they would take that into consideration. It wouldn't necessarily prevent them from eventually acting, but perhaps reassessing how aggressive they want to be. Trump's historic leadership has sent exactly the right message to people like Xi: resolve and strength. I don't disagree with that, not even a little bit. There are other people to consider here, and they're watching. And you'll note, incidentally, that China and Russia have both, they've basically been mum on this. Oh, they've sent out a little. I don't think China said anything. I think Russia said something about Israel attacking Iran. They didn't like that. But Russia and China, not a peep. They know. Now, of course, what would any international potential crisis and combat be if the ladies on The View didn't weigh in on it? 2660, if you please, Paulie.
But let's just remember, too, the Iranians literally throw gay people off of buildings. They don't adhere to basic human rights.
Listen, here's the thing. Let's not do that, because if we start with that, we have been known in this country to tie gay folks to the car.
Where the Iranian regime is today in 2025 is nothing compared to the United States.
Keep hanging black people. So
it is not even the same. I couldn't step foot wearing this.
Wait. That's not what you mean to say. It is the same.
No, it's not. The year 2025 in the United States is nothing like if I step foot wearing this outfit in Toronto.
I'm sorry.
I can't have my hair short.
That's enough. That's enough, because it's early and I don't want to give myself and all of you a headache. But that kind of thinking, I'm sorry to say, is pervasive on our side too. That Whoopi Goldberg mishmash of thinking, it now counts as conservative thought, depending on who you're listening to. Iran's not so bad, and we're pretty rotten too. It's crazy. It's the Stigall Show.
Hey, everybody talking about the Maha movement, Make America Healthy Again. Balance of Nature says, welcome to the party. They've been working hard, producing a vibrant nutritional supplement second to none for many, many years before it became fashionable. So many other people use chemicals and additives for their supplements, but Balance of Nature is made solely from whole food ingredients. And while other methods sacrifice nutritional quality for the sake of profits and volume, Balance of Nature, they use an advanced cold process, a vacuum cold process. It includes freeze-drying their fruits and vegetables into a fine powder, and so that allows them to retain as much nutritional value as possible. And they don't cut corners for volume or other things as maybe some other supplements do. Balance of Nature packs a real nutritional punch, and that's the whole reason to take Balance of Nature. Get the most nutrition for the sake of your good health. And if you use my name, Chris, as your promo code right now, you'll save 35% off your order, and they're even going to ship it to you for free. Plus, a money-back guarantee if you're not happy. Call them, 800-2468-751. Use the discount code Chris. Once again, don't forget the discount code Chris for that big 35% off savings plus free shipping. Order online, balanceofnature.com.
Hey there, it's Chris, back on the phone with my dentist and friend Bob Spinato at Williamsburg Dental in Broomall, Pennsylvania, just off the Blue Route with new technology. You have not just new associates, but they brought new technology into the business to make it a little easier for patients.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time in dentistry. We have now introduced a three-dimensional x-ray called a CBCT scan in our office, which allows us to diagnose and things earlier for patients. My daughter is placing a lot of implants in the past had referred out. It's now being done in-house. And we also, we've been using dental or computer scanners for taking impressions for crowns for about the last 2 to 3 years. We now have introduced the next step, which is a milling machine, and we can now make crowns in the office. Things can be completed in the same day as opposed to having a temporary crown put on and 3 weeks later coming back and having a permanent crown put on. It's really a game changer, and it's a time saver for our patients to not have to make multiple visits to the office.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com.
Great to be with you, folks. Welcome in on this Thursday edition of the Stigall Show. Thanks for listening wherever you may be today. If you're watching on the Salem News Channel, thanks for streaming the show. Samsung Plus folks watching, Roku folks watching, maybe watching on your device. The Salem News Channel app's an easy way to watch this show anywhere you go. Take the app along with you. And if you're listening on this fabulous radio station, we're grateful. I should remind you that, speaking of fabulous radio stations, my home stick, as it were, AM 990 The Answer, I'm going to be in Philadelphia, in the area, Conshohocken specifically, with my friend E.J. Antoni on Tuesday night. And as I understand it, there's exactly like a pair of tickets left. Like a pair. That's all that's left. So it is a highfalutin, elite, I think we're literally doing 50 people. That's it. Because we didn't want to pack the place. EJ is the big dog economist at the Heritage Foundation now. And I know everybody has lots of questions about the economy. And so I said, what we should do is have a proper conversation over cigars and cocktails for people that like to partake and be able to have a fluid, engaged conversation with somebody with a brain like this. EJ happens to be from Philadelphia, so he was happy to come home and share a cigar. We're going to be at the Cigar Republic in Conshohocken, just outside of the Philadelphia area proper, for those of you that are not familiar with the area. Cigar Republic, they're fantastic hosts. We've been there before with Seb and others. And I will just tell you that if you don't have a ticket and you want to go, and this sounds fun, it's Tuesday night, so it's just around the corner. 3 cigars in the package, your first drink is on us, and an hors d'oeuvre buffet, all available to you for one ticket price, and great conversation too. I think like I said, there's a pair left. Go to 990theanswer.com and get yours. I hope to see you. Can't wait to shake your hand on Tuesday night. It's going to be a great evening. There was an incredibly important ruling from the Supreme Court yesterday, and you should know about it. And I would submit to you that in terms of keeping our children safe, you talk about the Maha movement, or you talk about combat with Iran, everybody on edge about World War III or whatever. Well, let me tell you what I find more disturbing, that there are children's doctors and hospitals in this country, as well as parents, if I could be really blunt, that think sending their minor children into a buzzsaw of transgender surgery or chemical castration makes sense. It makes no sense, of course. It's abusive, as a matter of fact. Would you give, and very simply the metric is, would you give your child a pint of whiskey? If I told you, and there were a few doctors that had a consensus that, letting your child knock back a pint of whiskey is medicinal, of course you wouldn't. It's an absurd premise, but somehow it's not absurd to butcher a child, to change their gender, as if you even could. Here to discuss this, Katherine Green Robertson. She's chief counsel in the Office of the Attorney General in Alabama. And the reason we're speaking with Katherine specifically today is because attorneys general all over the country are now going to be able to weigh in on this and protect children in their respective states because of this ruling. So, Ms. Robertson, thank you so much for your time this morning. Hello.
Thank you for having me, Chris. Good to be with you.
First of all, this was a decision upholding states' rights, which I love. But the states protecting their children specifically is the way I read this. You?
That's right. I mean, right now we've got 26 states across our country that have laws like this. Alabama was one of the early states to adopt a law like this to prohibit this type of practice on minors. We've been litigating our case for several years. It was recently dismissed by the plaintiffs. We had the Biden DOJ come in against us. And so, yes, it's a big victory for states to maintain the right to protect public health and safety, which was, one of the original ideas given to the states by our founders.
This is a sincere question, not a stupid question. I mean this. What would happen in your state? What would you do to an adult or adults who hosted a party of teenagers and let them all get drunk at the house? What happens in Alabama? Do you guys prosecute that?
There'd be some liability for that, for providing alcohol to minors, for sure.
Why is taking your minor child to have their genitals cut off different than that?
Well, it's not. However, as you know, the medical organizations that have been involved in this issue have spent thousands of pages of briefs and lawsuits in court to make the case that this is safe and that it's honestly the compassionate thing to do. Our state lost early in this case because of the amount of so-called medical evidence that was in favor of these practices. And we had to fight back on that. In fact, it was Alabama's discovery in our case that Justice Thomas relied on in his concurrence to point out that the research does not support this, that it's not safe. And even though that seems like common sense, it really bucks the trend that the medical community has been backing on this issue. And so we said yesterday, this is a ruling that favors the rule of law, but also common sense. And I think that it's going to discredit many of the medical organizations who have been pushing this.
Katherine Green Robertson is chief counsel in the Office of the Attorney General of Alabama, and we're talking about this huge ruling, 6-3. The three, of course, were the predictable wing of the court on the left. Two of whom, it was pointed out, I thought interestingly, are not parents. Two of the three who said this was fine don't have children at all. Do you think that matters? And maybe this is too personal a question. Maybe I shouldn't ask it, but I'm gonna. And you can tell me to just stand down if you don't like it, counsel. Do you have children, Miss Robertson? And do you think that matters in talking about this?
Well, I think it overlooks the fact that it's not compassionate for parents to be any more misled than for their minor children. And so if you're not giving parents the honest truth about the dangers of these types of medicines and treatments, then the parents aren't in any better position than the minor child to make the decision. And so this has been an argument. I was there at the Supreme Court the day this case was argued. The other side presented a very emotional appeal for sympathy and compassion towards the people wanting these treatments. But I actually think it's more compassionate to both the parents and the child to know the truth about the life-altering impacts of these. And so I find it, pretty typical of the far left to not see it that way, to just toe the line in the face of overwhelming evidence that it's not safe, and that there are so many people out there that have had regrets about these treatments that they've done early in their lives, and then they grow up and realize what a huge mistake they've made. I don't think that is a service to parents or their children.
The argument in defense of this, Ms. Robertson, is what? Was it the 14th Amendment that was invoked here in defense of this?
Yeah, the argument is that this is a sex-based discrimination, a sex-based classification, because the law is applied against transgender children. That is not true. It was an age restriction. And so we saw these same arguments made in Alabama. The 11th Circuit rejected them. We felt very confident that the Supreme Court would as well. But of course, the liberal justices want transgenderism to be treated as a suspect class, and for this all to be about that identifying quality. This is an age thing. We are not trying to weigh in on adults making these types of decisions. And the court, it was I think a pretty easy decision for the conservative justices here.
Yeah, to make children with, in my view, this is my words, not yours, to make children who have a mental condition, I believe this is a mental illness, to create a class of people minor people with mental conditions and call them a class of people that deserve constitutional protection, that's about as contorted as it gets, because then you can say minor children that have any fool thought in their head are a protected class of people and thus can do whatever they want. Why do we have guardrails on anything young people do then?
Right. And look, we have age restrictions all across our laws for a variety of reasons, for voting, for driving, for alcohol consumption, as you mentioned. Same analysis here. It's what is safe for an adult, or what an adult may need the freedom to do or want the freedom to do does not mean that a minor child should have it, especially in the context of something like this that is not backed by evidence, not backed by science, and has a life-altering impact. And so, again, this is a policy debate that the states have been grappling with. Most states have come down clearly on the side of Alabama, which is we are not going to allow this practice to go on. What will be interesting is with this decision behind us, and I think Justice Thomas's concurrence is so important because he talks about the fact that the science has really been a sham. It's going to be interesting to see what blue and purple states do with that information, because our side has really had to fight stacks and stacks of briefs filed by organizations that sound professional, that sound like experts. You know, all these associations, including WPATH, which has been a target of ours. And now they've got to realize that when they have this debate, the science is objectively not on their side. At best, it's neutral, if not on our side. And so how will states respond to that? Will blue states continue to use this rhetoric to pass laws to protect this? Or are they going to realize that it needs to be prohibited?
Yeah, you know how unscientific this is, and how I know it is because hospital groups in blue states, particularly in Philadelphia, are backing away from this because the federal government, led by Trump, is saying you're not going to get any money to do this stuff if you don't knock it off. That money flow from the feds to these hospitals is so important to them, they've decided to shelve this on their own. Ms. Robertson, thank you very, very much for your time and your fight on this. Protecting our children is critically important. I'm glad to have you. Thanks so much. Down there in Alabama, as we take a quick break here on the Stigall Show. Ladies, I'm going to have to lean on you here for a second because I don't know. I can't, I dare not tread on this too heavily because I don't know. So I'm going to walk carefully through a minefield as I bring this up again. The last time I did, I tried to tread lightly, and you could have predicted this was coming. Can you explain to me what's going on with Caitlin Clark and the women around her she's playing with in the WNBA? I think I know, but I dare not say, because I don't. Believe me, I got enough incoming. I don't want to keep making more problems. If you haven't heard the story, I don't follow the WNBA. I don't really know much about Caitlin Clark other than I know she was like the biggest star in women's college basketball, and she is now the biggest star in the professional women's basketball league. And it's not even close. I guess other people. Who's that other one, Ed? Is it Angel Reese? Is that her name? Is she the one they put on cereal?
Yeah, Angel Reese is the new Wheaties box chick too. Yeah,
she's on like Reese's Puffs or something. I think really kind of a provocative looking photo of her on the cereal. I was like, whoa, okay, well, whatever. Anyway, she's the other star. Could you name a third?
No, Brittany Griner.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Brittany Griner, the one that got detained in Russia for smoking pot, right?
Yep, correct.
Okay, so. I saw the video later because I don't watch this, but Caitlin Clark is she's playing against the Connecticut Sun, I believe, and she's chirping a little bit at the Sun players, mouthing off. I guess she's a little mouthy during the games, whatever, fine. And that's when eventually a member of the Connecticut Sun has had enough and kind of smacks at her, swipes at her face, and pokes her in the eye, and she turns on a little bit of drama, I think. I mean, she got poked in the eye, but still she's like, oh, you know how soccer players do when they fall to the ground, like they've just had a bat taken to them when they were... I mean, she's selling it like she wants the foul, so she's, my eye, Okay. And so in comes... she turns around then, and she's pretty ticked about it, and she kind of... Have I got this about right, Ed? I don't want to mischaracterize any of this. She shoves a little bit. She kind of shoves the player back who poked her in the eye first.
Yeah,
is that about right?
She does. Yeah, the player that poked her in the eye, yes.
She kind of gives her a little shove. Not a huge one, doesn't knock her down, but a little shove. And then out of nowhere, like blindside tackle from behind, comes another a Connecticut Sun player, and just lays into Caitlin Clark and lays her out on the floor, stone cold. To which I guess one of the commentators said, "Oh, that's it. Maria Mabry is this woman's name, who gave Caitlin Clark this shot that knocked her down to the ground." The announcer, Pat Boylan, said, "Oh, Maria Mabry is going to be ejected. If officials saw that, Maria Mabry is going to be ejected. Mabry's day is almost assuredly going to be done." My understanding is it was not done, Ed. Oh. She was not ejected. Is that true?
As far as I know, there was nothing called at that time.
The team wasn't fined. She wasn't fined. Nobody was ejected. Nothing.
No.
So Chris Everett is out there now, the tennis great. Chris Everett is saying that when these ladies, when will they realize, she says in a post on X, when will they realize, accept and appreciate Caitlin Clark as the best thing that ever happened to women's basketball? This is a bad look for the sport and what's happened to sportsmanship. Everett's support for Clark echoed by USA Today columnist Christine Brennan's criticism of the WNBA's handling of the situation. Brennan posting, "The WNBA continues to fail to meet the moment. Terrible decision to allow Maria Mabry to stay in the game. People are watching as never before, and this is what they see." Well, what are they seeing, Ed? What are they seeing? I know what they're seeing, but dare I say it?
I think it's pretty plain as day, although the girl who did shove to the ground was a white girl, so that would,
Yeah, so it's not just racial.
Oh, yeah.
While there is a racial element to it with the Angel Reese thing, and we've talked about that before, this is just straight up, sheer, petty jealousy. Nothing more. Straight up jealousy that she gets the attention that they all think they deserve and want. That's what happened to sportsmanship, Chris. This is the Stigall Show. We had Missouri Senator Schmidt on the show yesterday. He is part of the Senate Judiciary Committee, holding hearings that launched yesterday on the use of Biden and his auto pen. Here's some of it.
For 4 years, we had a president who could barely string together coherent sentences after 6 p.m. Yet, this glaring fact went unreported, undiscussed, and unaddressed. Why? Because the Democrat Party, corporate media, federal bureaucracy, and big tech companies collaborated to conceal the truth from the American people, not out of ignorance. Under President Biden, the auto pen became a troubling symbol, a symbol of an absentee president and an executive branch directed by nameless, faceless aides that no one outside of Washington, D.C. had ever heard of and no one ever voted for. It was the auto pen presidency, a government run by committee rather than a leader chosen by the American people. The left and the corporate media place their pursuit of power above the welfare of your families and your country. They dismiss your observations, urging you to not to trust your own eyes. We have a solemn duty to call this what it is, an abdication of constitutional duty. As was stated in Federalist 51, ambition must check ambition. If a president is mentally unfit to serve, we need a dependable mechanism to, at the very least, ensure that the truth reaches the American people.
Senator Schmidt called this the biggest scandal in American presidential history, in his view, or at least certainly bigger than Watergate, which is often viewed historically as one of the biggest presidential scandals in history. Michael O'Neill, we're always so grateful for his time, another one of this show's fantastic legal beagles, Vice President of Legal Affairs at Landmark Legal Foundation. Mr. O'Neill, good morning. Welcome to the show.
It's always a pleasure to be with you, Chris. Great to be with you.
There's a host of stuff going on. We're all over the map today, but I love your take on so many things. Let me ask about the use of the auto pen. Senator Schmidt thinks this is a huge deal. Do you share that legally? Is this a huge deal if Joe Biden was not, in fact, signing off on these things?
Absolutely. I think we've talked about it honestly in the context of the pardon power and his exercise in the use of pardons. Now, I'm willing to concede that the pardon power is plenary. Let's see how many P's we can put in that sentence. But I recognize the nature of the president has an authority to issue pardons, a blanket authority to issue pardons. However, I do submit to you, and I think the framers would agree, that there's certain conditions have to be met. In other words, competency and actual attendance. In other words, he has to know exactly what, if he's going to exercise a presidential power. And if you're talking about any kind of presidential power, let's just talk about the pardon. He has to understand that he's actually exercising that power. He has to have the mental cognizance that he's understanding what he's doing. Next, he actually has to execute the power. You can't have the president has to be present in the room when he's executing the pardon, or when he's signing an executive order, or when he's signing a law, or when he's exercising any kind of executive power. So you have to have presence and competence at a minimum for those two factors. And I think what we're coming out here, and this is great that there's congressional hearings on this. There needs to be a lot of media attention. This is a huge scandal. This is a huge item for the American people to be aware of, that he wasn't present and he wasn't cognizant. And how can you assert that there was a valid exercise of any kind of executive power if the president of the United States wasn't present or cognizant of his actions, whether it be exercising executive orders or issuing presidential pardons?
If you can prove, if whomever could prove in a court of law that Joe Biden did not sign off on, the development of natural gas off the coast of Louisiana, somebody else did, the auto pen did, or if you can prove that he, in fact, didn't pardon people, the auto pen did, is there a legal justification for challenging and undoing, reversing those things, do you believe?
Yeah, I've come to this reluctantly because you want to defer to the authority of the president. But I think certainly yes. I mean, my kind of cribbage theory here is, how do you challenge the exercise of this pardon power? Well, what do you do? Indict Hunter Biden. Indict Hunter Biden and let a district court rule on it. Most likely, a district court's going to say, okay, well, there's a pardon executed. You're going to be able to have discovery. You're going to be able to conduct a criminal investigation. So you're going to have access to a lot of evidence that you wouldn't necessarily have access to, maybe even more access than a congressional hearing could achieve. So indict Hunter Biden, test the veracity and the constitutionality and the legality of the exercise of a pardon. Most likely it would get dismissed quickly in a district court, probably dismissed quickly in an appellate court, but then actually let the Supreme Court weigh in on the contours, on the limitations on this. I have to believe that there has to be some sort of limitations. It can't be simply unquestionable assertion of authority. I say to you, Chris, after looking at this and studying it, I do believe competence and attendance. He has to be present, competence and presence. You have to understand what you're doing, and you have to be present when you're executing that power. And if it can be established that he was neither, that neither of those factors are present, then I think you can question the validity of the action, the legality, the constitutionality of the action.
It's also very clear that this president willfully, along with Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, they willfully left the border open. We have this unbelievable stat released by ICE. It was stunning. May 2024 versus May 2025. That is, people that were apprehended at the border and released into the United States, 60,000 of them in May 24, 0 in 2025. Right. It was always and only about the president's decision to keep the border open or not. It was never about, remember how they used to lie and say, got to be Congress, need an act of Congress to get control of this? No, we just needed a different president, right?
Just more lies. I mean, consistent lies that were perpetuated by the Biden administration. And it's funny, you said the president. I don't think we can say the president. I think it's this Politburo of individuals who are trying to run the country. We're running the country poorly, by the way, for 4 years. And I submit to you this also, Chris. I think this was early on. We might say latter 2 years of his presidency, but I think this started pretty much on day one. We knew he was an apparatchik of a broader process, a broader group of individuals who were trying to run the country. And I think hopefully some of these congressional hearings will get to the root of it, about who was actually running the country during this period of time. But back to your original point, certainly all it took to enforce was enforcing existing laws, and we all knew this. But this is consistent with a consistent gaslighting that was undergone on the American people.
Yeah, the Biden presidency, to put it charitably, is an asterisk at best. But let me ask you, Michael O'Neill, Vice President of Legal Affairs, Landmark Legal. We're grateful to have him today, by the way, on X, at Landmark Legal. So now we have all of these folks in the country illegally, and Donald Trump's trying to deal with that and do something about it. Right. And you have Democrats suggesting that people like this Garcia guy should be afforded the full privileges of a trial in court here in the United States after he was sent to El Salvador. He's been brought back here. I think the Trump administration feels like they're very quickly probably going to make the case that they have every right to be able to deport him. But Trump is the guy who has said 1,000 times, everybody that breaks into the country and is here illegally is entitled to like a 2-year trial? That's impossible. What do you say on that?
Absolutely. Completely impossible. We know how many tens of millions of individuals. The due process that is afforded for individuals who are here illegally, it's simply confirming identity and then determining whether you're here illegally. Administrative law judges should do this. Immigration law judges should do this, not district court judges. There's 675 district courts, Article 3 district courts in this country. Obviously, they're not equipped to handle the width and breadth of immigration hearings. We have a system in place. I'm all for expanding immigration judges, expanding the administrative law judges that handle these cases on an expedited basis. That's how it should be handled. This due process that somehow you're afforded the due process that somebody is afforded to when they're accused of a criminal violation is just nonsensical. And there's no.
Could I ask you? Sorry to interrupt you, but I love this question, and I love to hear smart legal people sound off on it. To be clear, because there are still people that argue this to this day. Just yesterday on X, somebody was arguing with me that an illegal alien drug-running gang member, the government has evidence to believe that's so, deports him, and people will say he is due process should be afforded him. People say, as though he's an American citizen. I just reject that premise. What is the law on that?
No, if you're going to, okay, let's make some distinctions here. If you're going to deport him, then the law is notice and verification of identity. If you're going to indict him and put him in a federal or a state prison in the United States, then you have to, then you undergo the criminal process, because you're going to deprive him of his liberty and imprison him in an American prison. Then in those cases, he is because you have to make the case that he's committed the criminal crimes that you're accusing him of. However, deportation is not a criminal. It's not a criminal act. It's not a criminal prosecution. That is, again, you're afforded a lower. If you want to talk about levels of due process, the due process you're afforded in those contexts for deportation is identification and then confirmation that you're here illegally, and then deportation. Now, we could talk about when we're invoking the Alien Enemies Act and we're sending individuals to those prisons in El Salvador. Keep in mind, those are individuals, the Supreme Court has said that they're entitled to some sort of habeas process, but those individuals are being they're not being returned to their country of origin. They're not being sent to a country where they're going to presumably have liberty. They're being sent to a prison in El Salvador. Now, again, the Alien Enemies Act, I'm all for the exercise of this. I do not think that district courts should be meddling in these processes to the extent that they've meddled in. I think what happened in Washington, D.C. was a travesty with regard to turn the planes around. No judge has authority to order the Department of Homeland Security to turn planes around. However, the Supreme Court has said that there's some sort of habeas proceedings for those. But keep in mind, Alien Enemies Act is not your garden run-of-the-mill deportation process. These are for the worst of the worst. These are for the individuals who are here engaging in human trafficking, narco-terrorism, almost a quasi-military action. So for your garden INA cases, we're talking identification, confirmation of illegality, and then removal.
It's so weird because Democrats are dying on this hill. They really think this is a thing. Yeah. And most of the American people are 100% with Trump on this. Oregon is trying to pass a law to stop Trump from ever using the National Guard in Oregon if he chooses. Like, it's so strange to me what these people think they can do to try to thwart Trump's, due afforded authority as president of the United States. Right. Michael O'Neill, Vice President of Legal Affairs at the Landmark Legal Foundation. Thanks for your expertise as always, sir.
Always, Chris. Have a great day.
And we will take a quick break here. Still to come, we are going to get into what's going on in Iran. Israel hit hard. Hospital, by the way, a hospital was hit by Iran overnight. Good guys. This is the Stigall Show. Pete Hegseth was testifying on Capitol Hill. It was a Senate Armed Services Committee hearing on recent military action, including the protests that have gotten out of hand. And Donald Trump was, of course, dispatching members of the military in California's case. Oregon just passed a law. I'm not kidding you. Yesterday, Oregon just passed a law that said, let me read it to you. They're moving to restrict, I guess the governor hasn't signed it yet, so it hasn't passed in full, but Oregon lawmakers moving to restrict the federal government's authority over state National Guard despite a huge surge of violence and anti-ICE protests, particularly in Portland. Do you know I hear from Oregon citizens with regularity saying it's bad here, Chris. Everybody's talking about Seattle. Everybody talks about California. You don't know how bad it is in Oregon. I hear you, Oreganders. I get your email. I know you're struggling there. We've heard from Salem, Oregon. We've heard from Portland, Oregon, our affiliates in Oregon. It's a cesspool.
And can you believe the legislature of Oregon is actually trying to move so that Donald Trump could not use the National Guard as he did in L.A. to protect its citizens? It's Mad Max and the Thunderdome stuff. It makes no sense on its face. Representative Dasha Graber says deploying the military against our country's citizens is an affront to our democratic principles. It's absurd. MSNBC covered a little bit of Hegseth's testimony, but boy, they bailed quick when Hegseth basically said, we're getting the job done. 2571 here, Paul. Here's MSNBC deciding, whoop, better get out of this. Hegseth's making a point that it's working and people like it.
As was mentioned by the chairman, we are working to achieve 100% operational control of the border. Illegal crossings have decreased 99.9%, and it was just reported today that CBP released 0 illegals into the U.S. last month, down from 62,000 released into the interior.
Oh, we better get out of that. Crap. These lunatic Democrats, I don't know what points they think they're scoring. Every poll, there is not a metric, there is not a data set that I have seen that suggests the Democrats are on the right path here, which tells me again, what is this about? They're all auditioning for the power seat in the DNC. A little later, in fact, in the show, I'm going to share with you a story. They are in utter chaos. I mean, they're spinning out of control, and basically all these Democrats are just vying for a shot at the captain's chair. They're trying to hoover up money and consolidate power in their ranks. They're not even interested in trying to win the American public over. Listen to this bat crap crazy exchange between Alyssa Slotkin and Hegseth, 2568, Paul, if you would please.
Not want citizens to be scared of their own military. I love the military. I served alongside my whole life, so I'm worried about you tainting it. Have you given the order? Have you given the order that they can use lethal force against honor? I want the answer to be no. Please tell me it's no. Have you given the order?
Senator, I'd be careful what you read in books and believing it, except for the Bible.
Oh, my God. So your former predecessor, I guess that's not enough for you. Okay.
What? I don't even know what that... I think she thinks it's like a reenactment of A Few Good Men or something. Did you give the order? I don't know what you're talking about, lunatic. They're just the worst. They're really the worst. But, okay. Did you see the giant flags Trump hoisted in the air yesterday on the grounds of the White House? I wonder, do you think the next Democrat president will take them down? Sincere question, Fast Eddie. Do you think a Democrat president will come in and take down the American flags Trump paid to have installed on both the North and South Lawn yesterday?
No, they won't take them down. They will, however, put the pride flag up during the month of June, though, for sure. You know it.
Like equally big or something, right underneath it or something?
Oh, no, they're going to take
maybe
the
on
flag.
top of it.
Yeah, it's going to be bad. So.
You think, this is interesting. Mm-hmm. So you think they're not going to take the flag and the flagpole down, but they're going to use it to hoist the trans flag and just take the American flag off of it altogether.
Yep. Yes, I do.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. I think that's possible. Wednesday, 2 large flagpoles installed at the White House, paid for out of Trump's own pocket. Each flagpole stands 88 feet tall, with one being placed on the North Lawn, the other being placed on the South Lawn. In a post announcing the installation of the poles, Trump wrote, "It is my great honor to announce I will be putting up 2 big, beautiful flagpoles on both sides of the White House. It is a gift from me of something which was always missing from this magnificent place." He added, "These are the most magnificent poles ever made. They're tall, tapered, rust-proof, rope inside the pole, and of the highest quality." I love him. I love him. Just as I joked when the guy was going to try to assassinate him on his golf course, Trump describes the assassin as hiding out in the lush bushes of his golf course. I just adore that. It doesn't matter what Trump is talking about, even if it's a guy trying to kill him. He wants to point out he's hiding out in the best of top shelf shrubs and hedges. Trump approved. This is the Stigall Show. Hey there, it's Chris from my good friends at Texas Bullion Exchange. The good people that tell you there is no reason to live with all of this angst and anxiety about the markets going up and the markets going down. Why don't you just do something that has helped people calm their nerves in volatile markets for years?
Texas Bullion Exchange, real physical gold as part of your savings. That's what they do. It's not about getting rich quick, mind you. It's about helping protect what you've already earned. And if you join Texas Bullion Exchange's Principal Protection Program, you're going to get 3% bonus in silver on your entire gold portfolio. Now, this program protects the value of what you've earned. So when you put it into gold and then it's time to sell, you get back what you paid. Never less. In fact, usually it's more, but it's never less. And isn't that reassuring? This program protects the value of your gold. Take the pressure off. You and your loved ones can face the future with confidence when you put gold in your savings and claim your 3% in bonus silver when you do it. 855-839-2728 is their number. 855-837-2728. Or visit buytexasgold.com. Again, 855-839-2728 or buytexasgold.com. It's Texas Bullion Exchange. Experience, integrity, and value.
Hey there, it's Chris Stigall. You know, this past summer, I went on a cruise with Dr. Sebastian Gorka, Mike Gallagher, my Salem radio colleagues, and I met so many listeners like you who have been on my PhD weight loss program journeys, and I decided for myself it was time to jump in. I wanted to give this Dr. Ashley everybody's been talking about call myself. Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team customize plans for your body to make weight loss simple, and they provide 80% of your food at no additional cost. They treat your whole person, and so I've decided to join so many of you. Join Sebastian Gorka, join Mike Gallagher, and all the weight they've lost, I'd like to do it myself. I've decided to call up my PhD weight loss. I hope you'll join me. Maybe we can start this weight loss journey together. Reach out, get started. Tell them I sent you and said hi. I'd love to hear how you're doing at 864-664-1900. That's 864-664-1900 or myphdweightloss.com. Don't forget to tell them Chris Stigall is going to start losing weight with you.
Glad to have you here, folks. I welcome you in as we look live at Seaside Heights, New Jersey. Good morning. Beautiful shot of the boardwalk today on the Salem News Channel. If you watch, glad to have you there. Hope that you do. If you're not familiar with the Salem News Channel, get familiar. Take the app along with you. You can download it and get it anywhere you find this app. It doesn't matter if you want to watch it on the iPad, if you want to watch it on your phone. I don't care. Stream it on your Samsung Plus device. A lot of ways to do it. Take it along with you. Get that app and click Watch Live, and it's easy. You can take it anywhere. And, of course, if you're listening on great radio stations across New Jersey and Philadelphia, all up and down the eastern seaboard, hundreds of Stigall affiliates all over the country, it is an honor to be here with you, and it is an honor that so many in this audience have extended their charity to the good people at Prison Fellowship Ministry. I have to update you on this because it is so exciting. We set out a month ago with the goal of sending 455 kids who come from extraordinarily rough backgrounds. We set out with a goal to send 455 of them to a Christ-centered camp for the summer. A week of fun and fresh air and activities and swimming and hiking and horseback riding and all of that, but most of all, the gospel message. This is the kind of stuff that can change the trajectory of an otherwise troubled situation for a child, change the trajectory of their entire life, perhaps. You know the impact Christ has had on your life if you're a Christian. I know that's the case for me. And so if you can introduce the gospel to one of these young people for maybe the first time, maybe one of the only times they get to hear the good news in their lives, so many of you have sent in your donations to help the Prison Fellowship people do this. $200 is what it takes to send one child to camp for an entire week. I'm happy to report that we are well over 500 kids that you are sending to camp because of your generosity. All the $1,000 givers, I was blown away at the number of you. I get a report daily of those of you that have given at least $1,000 or more to this effort, all of whom have become lifetime subscribers to the Harump Society. You're all signed up and ready to go. If you can still take advantage of that through tomorrow, by the way. We're doing this through tomorrow, and then we wrap up the campaign. We hit our goal because you're awesome. Your generosity just knows no bounds. Thank you. I love doing this work because it's ministry. It's mission-focused work. It's more than just sitting here belly aching. There are a lot of shows that can just sit and belly ache about the state of things in the country. I'm proud to work for a company who works with Christ-centered charities who are actually trying to improve the lives of others here in the country and internationally and touch them with the Word of God. So if you want to help, there are a couple of ways to do it. you can go to my website today, chrisstigall.com, and click on the link at the top of the page. It says give the gift of camp this summer, and give whatever you can. If you can give $200 and send a child to camp for a week, great. If you can't do 200, do 5, do 10, do 50. I don't care. If you can do more, awesome. 888-206-2794 is the telephone number if you want to give. 888-206-2794. Or again, chrisstigall.com. Click on that banner, or angeltree.org/Chris. That's another way to do it. This lunatic E. Jean Carroll is back. This is the woman that thinks rape is sexy. Remember her? Why is she back, Eddie? Why is she back in the news? Who gives her a platform exactly? Do we know?
It's every time. It's MSNBC. It's not even CNN that I see her on. Every single time I see her pop up, it's on MSNBC. Don't know why.
This is literally the lady that told Anderson Cooper that rape is sexy. I'm not making that up. You can go look it up for yourself. It's weird. It's creepy. But she's the one that won a lawsuit. They couldn't prove that she was raped, but it was something, I can't remember exactly, some tangential ruling, and Trump ended up having to pay her money. Anyway, the lunatic says that, 2559, lest I try to transcribe it for you. 2559, Paulie.
I know my own pleasures, and they don't, that doesn't involve buying things. Where my pleasure comes is making him so pissed off he can't think. We need to prick his little balloon constantly. And one of the ways to do that is to give his money to women's reproductive rights.
Oh, hell yeah.
To binding up the wounds of democracy, which he is destroying by the very instant that we're sitting here, shoring up voting rights. Can you imagine how angry he takes this? He made $600 million last year on Bitcoin.
Grifting.
And as Robbie says, do you know anybody except criminals who make money on Bitcoin? No, do we? We don't. Anyway, so it's just so delicious.
Right, that's enough.
Thinking
that's
about
enough. I can't. How many white wine spritzers did that lunatic have before that lunatic discussion? This is what the Democrats are. This is what they have. Alex Padilla, hands off me! I am a senator. And that lunatic in a wig calling everybody that invests in Bitcoin a criminal. This is the Democrat Party. Cuckoo cachoo. I cannot believe these people. I can't. I'm sort of amazed that they have sunk to the level they've sunk and actually treated as serious. That Katie Fang woman or whoever it was that was conducting the interview. Oh, yes, right on, sister, preach. What sane human being looks in on these people and their theatrics and their idiotic points of view and thinks it's a way forward for the country? Clearly no one. How do I know? From the New York Times, the DNC is in chaos and desperate for cash. What I have been saying over and over and over, what leads these people to sound and look as lunatic as they are? For this very headline. Again, from the New York Times. This is not some conservative outpost. This is the New York Times writing this. Under its new leader, Ken Martin, the white bread Ken Martin, they thought they'd bring in a kind of a plain. This is a guy that would typically be a Pennsylvania Republican. Hello, everybody. I'm Ken Martin. I'll cut the crust off your bread. Would you like a tuna fish sandwich? Those guys. They grow them in the Republican Party in Pennsylvania. They've decided to take one of these guys and make him head of the Democrat Party, hoping that will work. Do you think you can get a boring white bread guy to run the DNC and that work, Ed? Do you think the Democrats want a boring white guy to run their party?
No, only if he's waving the Palestinian flag and wearing a keffiyeh. Right? No, of course not.
That lunatic E. Jean Carroll, AOC, Bernie Sanders, take your pick, Padilla, all these people, all of these show ponies, they want the boring Ken Martin as their leader? No, they don't. Little David Hogg, of course, thrown out, Boss Hogg. He was. They're out of cash, and they think the white guy is going to raise it. E. Jean Carroll has a better chance at raising money for these lunatics. Alex Padilla, that's what they're doing. They're all out there trying. That's why Boss Hogg was fired. That's why he was thrown out. He was getting too much attention. He was too good at it.
Under its new leader, Ken Martin, the Democrat National Committee has been plagued by infighting and a drop in big donations, raising alarms from Democrats as they try to win back power. Just months into the tenure of their new party leader, the DNC's financial situation has grown so bleak, top officials have discussed whether they might need to borrow money this year to keep paying their bill. The Democrat Party is prepared to break out a credit card. They're in that big of trouble. Fundraising from major donors, some of whom Mr. Martin has still not spoken with, has slowed sharply. At the same time, he has expanded the party's financial commitments to every state and even to far-flung territories like Guam. Well, he sounds brilliant. So he's not only boring, but he sounds stone-cold stupid. So they have no money, and he's decided we're going to quadruple down and start spending in Guam? That sounds about right. Fellow Democrats grumbling that Mr. Martin, who quietly accepted a raise after taking the post, because of course he did, has been badly distracted by internal battles. So far, they say, he's been unable to help unite his party against Republicans. Because he's a loser. To them, he's a loser. You would have a better shot. I don't mean to try to help the Democrats here, but I mean, who have they got? The Obamas and the Clintons have effectively been kicked out forever. Obama and his terrible, terrible loss, his embarrassing loss, endorsing cackle bridges and telling American black men that if they don't support her, they're, a betrayer to their race or whatever. So Obama has been neutered. The Clintons, that goes without saying. She never was viable as a national figure, and he, well, we all know about him. So there's a power vacuum. Of course, Chuck Schumer, they want rid of him. He's old guard. Sloppy choppers, who actually had a modicum of control. Nancy Pelosi, she's been relegated to the sidelines. It's a power vacuum. The Democrats have nobody in charge. It's a house party. It's like you left your kids over the weekend and trusted them with the keys and the unlocked safe and the refrigerator full of beer and hoped that nothing bad would happen. That's what it is right now. And the Democrats, in my opinion, would have been better off keeping a little guy like David Hogg or Boss Hogg or that Malcolm Kenyatta guy. Make AOC your party chair. She'll make more money. She'll raise more money than this boring white bread guy who's trying to make the Democrats look normal. They're not normal. They're anything but normal. They're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. They're lunatics. They're street theater artists. You may as well lean into it. I mean, not to help, but just trying to send you a lifeline, Democrats. Lean into your theater and your kookery. It's where the passion is. This is the Stigall Show. Speaking of the Maha movement, did you see yesterday that General Mills is now going to... What did I do with that? I just had it a minute ago. Well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, it's the running theme that these companies are now going to get... They're going to start striking the dyes and whatnot from their food. And it brought to mind a question that I have, Ed. Do you think the American public is going to be able to deal with food that is not as colorful? I know that sounds ridiculous, but let's be honest. People have made food to look a certain way to us in a grocery store or what have you so that it will look more eye-appealing. Meat, in many cases, that's mass-processed and shipped out, do you know that that's often colored red? Oranges, true, are actually made to look more orange in many cases. Not all cases, but in many cases. Our food is colored often to look more appealing. I think everybody understands that. Could we deal with a true gray color in mass-manufactured hamburger, for instance, versus the red you buy packaged at the store?
I think so, yes. I think we can deal with that.
You think we're going to get used to it? We just have to accept the Maha movement means we're not going to be lied to, that the meat we bought processed at the store is not inherently red. It's more a shade of gray.
That's right, and I think that'll help people too. That's obviously a hamburger's a cow, right? So if it's less red, then I don't have to think about that they slaughtered the cow so I could eat this burger.
This is interesting. For animal lovers that have a conscience about it, you think people will see the meat and not feel, they won't be reminded of blood. And by the way, I can already hear you, natural source people. I can hear you. That's not the way it looks if you process beef at home. I know. I know. I'm talking about the mass processed stuff and shipped to all our stores. No, if you go buy local, I mean, if you buy from a local butcher who took care of the meat right there, in a farm near you, a field near you, different. You will often see that meat is red. But anyway, General Mills, Kraft, they are now starting to strip all of the dyes and whatnot, the red dyes. There's almost nothing in nature that's blue, for instance. Have you ever thought about that? I read that yesterday. What's blue by nature? Anything? The blueberry is really the closest thing I could think of, and that's more purple. So really, when you think about it, the number of things we consume that are a bright color, they shouldn't be, actually. And I wonder if most of us are going to be okay with that.
I think so. I think we can handle this one. Yeah.
All right. Obama says we are moving dangerously close to an autocracy. And he said it without a hint of irony. Former President Obama warning yesterday the current political climate isn't consistent with American democracy. Let me tell you what is not consistent with American democracy. People like Ilhan Omar, 2536, who say things like this.
I grew up in a dictatorship. And I don't even remember ever witnessing anything like that. To have a democracy, a beacon of hope for the world to now be turned into one of the worst countries where the military are in our streets without any regard for people's constitutional rights, while our president is spending.
Yeah, we're one of the worst, says one of the leading voices, the luminaries. So we're an autocracy and one of the worst countries because we're trying to get a handle on the flood of illegals that the former president did not prevent from storming into the country. The American public doesn't buy any of this. Trump is trying to restore order and return power to the people of this country. They're the central planner autocracies that were key in trying to undermine the country, by the way. Any wonder they're rudderless? This is the Stigall Show. All right, so what is true? We talked a little about this earlier this morning. I think it's important to continue to talk about what is true and what Donald Trump is actually saying versus what maybe some of your favorite conservative commentators are saying. If you're listening to me, of course, you know my position. I trust Trump in this, and Trump has not said we're changing regimes. Trump has not said we're fully engaging in war with boots on the ground. Trump has not even said we're going to launch an aerial assault. He has said everything is on the table. That's what he said. Let's go to 2575, specifically the president, in his own words, from the Oval Office yesterday.
Look, they should have made the deal. I had a great deal for them. They should have made that deal. 60 days we talked about it, and in the end, they decided not to do it, and now they wish they did it. And they want to meet, but it's a little late to meet, but they want to meet, and they want to come to the White House. They'll even come to the White House. So we'll see. I may do that, but it's a shame it could have been done the easy way.
Gentleman that knows these issues well, worked in the Department of State for a time. He is Executive Director of Polaris National Security today. Gabriel Noronha joins us again. Mr. Noronha, great to see you, sir.
Hey, Chris. Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, and I continue to stay committed to something that I hope I'm not boring the audience with, but I think it's important because you've probably seen it if you've spent some time online. And it's all coming from inside our own camp. The Democrats and the left are off talking about ICE and street theater. They're not even really interested in the subject of Iran at all, which I find kind of curious, and maybe you could explain that one later. But for now, inside our own tent, we as conservatives, there are some prominent voices out there suggesting this is World War III, that Trump is being dragged into a war led by Israel, boots on the ground. I don't think any of that's true. I don't think Trump has said a word. He's just saying everything's on the table. He also said Iran called him up and are willing to come to the White House to meet with him, which I think is huge news nobody's talking about this morning. So what's true, Mr. Noronha?
Well, I think what's true is that no one is coming to Iran's rescue, that no one wants to come and start a war with Israel or the United States if we hit Iran. Russia has abandoned Iran. China's abandoned Iran. The Arabs are rooting us on behind the scenes. And so Iran has lost its proxies, and they have no leverage anymore. Basically, they had 2,000 missiles. They were threatening to strike Israel with all of them. They've barely fired off about 400, and almost none of them have hit. So again, they've lost air superiority. They are at the mercy of Israel at this point. Yes, I think they just don't have leverage, and it's time for them to sort of talk surrender terms, which is what President Trump has called for. I don't think that White House meeting thing is accurate. The Iranians have denied it. President Trump has denied it. They had a policy of never even meeting us in person the last several years, and so I don't think that one has changed like that, but you never know.
Okay, so when I think Trump kind of flirted with that, they denied it, of course, Iran did. So you see no scenario that Trump would ever invite Iranian leaders to the White House?
No, I don't think so. I mean, they've tried to kill him for the last, 5 years now. And
so may I ask you something on this? This is a real bugaboo of mine because it came up yesterday, and now what is this famous, and it's going viral. Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz having a discussion about Iran. Did you see any of that?
I unfortunately did, yeah. It was,
so here's the charge. Here's the charge from Tucker. If Ted Cruz or any of us believe that Iran, and you just said it, have been trying to murder the sitting president of the United States, then apparently Tucker's position is we should send the full might of the military, boots on the ground and all, into Iran to topple the regime, which I find kind of curious because his whole argument has been that we ought not get engaged. He says that we don't believe Iran is trying to kill our president unless we give the full might of our military to take them down. Do you agree with that?
Well, I can guarantee you that the Iranians have been trying to kill President Trump. They've been trying to kill my former bosses. And so I've been very vested in this issue because I'm trying to make sure that I'm not on their hit list as well. Look, there were points last year where I understand that there were actually even Iranian drones near the president's motorcade. There were points when the president had to take a dummy aircraft because there were concerns that the Iranians were going to try to shoot down the president's campaign plane. That's how serious it was. And so the idea that Tucker either doesn't know that and wasn't paying attention to that seems ridiculous to me. And then he says, oh, we should nuke Iran if that's what they're doing. Again, he's entirely intellectually inconsistent, doesn't pay attention to anything that's actually going on, and just fear mongers about how there's going to be 3,000 Americans dead if there are strikes on Iran. Again, he's living in fantasy land, and I think
I'm going to give him, Mr. Noronha, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's sincere, but I really do want to ask you, and I know you're not a military expert, but is it consistent to say we should send the full might of the United States military, sick that, on Iran if we know, and you've just said we know, that they were a threat to sitting presidents and secretaries of state? Is that the way you deal with this, the full might of the military, is Tucker's assertion, I guess?
Well, I actually think that the best model here is strangely President Bill Clinton. Back in the early 90s, the Iraqis were trying to kill George H.W. Bush, and they made an assassination attempt on him. And what Bill Clinton did was he sent, I think, 34 missiles to the Iraqi Ministry of Intelligence headquarters, blew up the whole thing. And that sent the perfect message. It was, there are consequences for trying to kill an American president. We're going to take out those who are planning it, and then we're going to call it a day. I think that was the model. Frankly, it worked. It restored deterrence. The Iraqis never tried to kill George H.W. again. We don't have to go, do regime change just because they're trying to take out a president, but you have to put costs on this. And that's what President Biden refused to do for 4 years. Again, my colleagues, my bosses were under assassination threat for 4 years. Biden did absolutely nothing in any costs. And that's part of the reason that we're in this situation today. Is Iran did not believe that it would face costs for its actions.
Let me tell you, here's what I know. I hosted an event last year with Mike Pompeo, and I know very specifically he traveled with armed security, and the movements of his day were scrutinized greatly for this very reason we're discussing. The government of Iran has put a hit out on him, and they're still to this day mindful of that, and he has no seat of power at all today. So that's a very real thing, whether you believe it or not, but Mike Pompeo does, for that matter. Gabriel Noronha is with us, Executive Director of Polaris National Security. So here's the other question that I wanted to have answered by someone who knows, and you do. You've been in the room. Regime change. You used the term. This is another one that I keep hearing. Tulsi Gabbard used to say regime change war. Again, people like Tucker saying it a lot. Do you have to see the leadership of Iran exterminated and changed in order to successfully bring them to heel? I don't think Donald Trump is saying that.
Yeah, when I worked for him in the first term, he was pretty opposed to regime change. In fact, he made that very clear to us that we were not to try to go in and achieve regime change in Iran. I don't think you have to do it. I will say this. Look, there's a real question about, let's say, Israel takes out the rest of the nuclear program successfully, which I think they're about to do. What happens when they leave? Will Iran just reconstitute a nuclear program? So I think there's three options. There's you do some deal where it's, you guarantee that Iran never puts a nuclear facility back together. Option two is you keep bombing them every few years as they develop their nuclear program again. And option three is regime change. So those are the options. I don't really like regime change as a policy. I don't think we know or have any good track record of success in this matter. And we don't know who's going to come back after.
I was going to say, can we look at Syria as Exhibit A?
And Libya as Exhibit 2? Like, again, not great answers on any of these
Afghanistan?
Fronts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, regime change is just like, look, these guys are bad. They're terrible. They've murdered hundreds, thousands of their own citizens. I would love for this regime to leave this earth and go to the trash bin of history better than anyone else. However, there's a difference between me wanting something and me saying the U.S. government should actually pursue that thing and own the consequences of it. There's a real possibility that this regime is going to collapse under the weight of all these Israeli strikes. There's a good possibility that people are going to rise up and do something. What I would say is the United States needs to be prepared for that situation. We need to think through who comes next, but we should not be the ones that, we don't want to break it and we don't want to buy it. But we do need to be prepared and say, okay, who can we work with in the event that the people rise up, take control, or that, again, the regime just collapses, everyone flees to try to go to other countries and save their own wealth and families.
I've got a couple of minutes here left, Gabriel. Israel's neighbors as well as us, our role in this so far, do you believe Israel can take this on and take this out by themselves with our kind of sideline help shooting missiles here and there out of the sky?
Yeah, I think what I've talked to from the Israelis is they sort of said, hey, the thing that we need the most is we just need help in intercepting these missiles that are coming into our cities. We have a lot of interceptors. However, we do not have infinite number of interceptors. I'll tell you, my friends who work on Asia policy are fretting with every single missile that we're shooting down because those are interceptors that we don't get to use. Trade-offs here. Every time that we are knocking down a missile, it's going to cost us down the road. But these are Israeli lives that we're saving. These are lives of American citizens who are stuck in Israel right now, who we are saving. Again, that is the single most important thing we can do. Israel has its offensive capabilities. They can take out Fort Dow, I think. They've got the technology. But again, us going on defense. And then the big thing is on the backside, rebuilding our stockpile of interceptors really fast. We've been struggling at this mightily over the last several years. And we have to supercharge our military industrial capacity to rebuild these munitions, or it will literally be too late.
Gabriel Noronha, Executive Director of Polaris National Security at GL Noronha, Noronah on X. Gabriel, thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, Chris.
Now, see, that was a perfectly reasonable, non-warmonger, non-saber-rattling discussion, wasn't it? This is the Stigall Show. Few interesting headlines today that caught my eye. Marine-powered sea spider that's evolved with a symbiotic relationship with deep-sea bacteria. You say, Stigall, that's a weird thing for you to bring up. Why would you bring something like that up? This from
IFLscience.com. Living without sunlight ain't easy, but newly discovered sea spiders off the U.S. coast have evolved. And they've evolved in a remarkable way with a survival strategy they find deep on the seafloor. In a world where photosynthesis is not an option, these spindly creatures farm methane-eating bacteria on their own bodies and then feast upon them. It was revealed that their exoskeletons were caked in different species of methane-oxidizing bacteria. Through chemosynthesis, these bacteria can obtain energy and produce carbon from methane gas that's naturally bubbling up from the seafloor. Now, why would I bring that up to you? I bring it up to you because it is another instance of science discovering the miracles, the miraculousness, the unexplained wonder of our Creator. And it cannot be denied, and it cannot be ignored, that there is a creature in the darkest depths of the ocean that feeds on organisms attached to itself. Those organisms are kept alive by methane gas. Coming from where? The earth. Where are you going with this, Stigall? It's nature. That's where I'm going with it. Methane gas coming up out of the Earth's crust naturally. And there are organisms at the bottom of the seafloor that need it for nutrients. That then, in that great food chain, this sea spider eats them that are eating the methane gas. It's as I pointed out before when that rig exploded in the Gulf. And you thought that maybe not you, but you were told by many people, and I heard many people confident and hysterical, that the Gulf was going to be awash in oil that was pumping up from the seafloor, spraying into the ocean. Oh, no, we'll never be able. And what happened? It went away. Why? Because inside the sea are microorganisms that eat oil, because it's a naturally occurring element that we're pumping out of the ground. Maybe not at that speed and volume. As Jeff Goldblum says in Jurassic Park, nature finds a way. Yes, it does. That's the hand of a creator. And so people that tell you that oil and methane and natural gas are some kind of toxin or pollutant, it's just absurd. CO2 is not a pollutant. It is a nutrient and needed by plants to produce oxygen, which we inhale in a process called photosynthesis. Nothing that occurs naturally on this planet is a pollutant, and yet there's a political faction that has raised a bunch of money and caused a lot of young people over the years to go into these death spiral panics that we're killing the planet, or that cows and methane production are killing the planet. Organisms literally depend on methane to survive. I just wanted to share that remarkable bit of creation with you. I'll see you tomorrow. So that's a wrap for another Chris Stigall Show podcast. Thanks for committing to it, listening to it all the way through. You're a fighter. I like that about you. Hope you'll leave it a 5-star review and a written review. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We'll see you next time here on the Chris Stigall Show podcast.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.